Today's Mass is being offered for Maynard Schumacher, deceased, and please keep Father Verbrugge in your prayers. Today I wanted to speak a bit about the fifth commandment, and we often hear about the fact that we should not kill our neighbor, we should not kill anyone. Of course, this is, for most of us, a very easy commandment to abide by. But that's not really the whole of the commandment. That's not really what is totally intended by that thou shalt not kill. And of course, there is a difference between murdering and killing someone in a justified way, in self-defense, for example. I wanted to focus more on the spiritual ways in which we kill one another, or even kill the Mass, or kill the spiritual nature of someone else. We must realize that we are never allowed to kill the Spirit, the authentic Spirit, the Spirit that moves within the church, the Spirit that animates, hopefully, every good action and keeps us cognizant of the fact that we can offend very much our Lord. If we're not careful, we can, in fact, mortally wound or kill those things that would best befit our society and our family. I can't help but think about the traditional Mass when I think about this topic, because I think the traditional Mass is one of the great antidotes for the spiritual slaughter that has ensued since the last council. The Canons Regular of St. John Cantius were on EWTN this week, and they had one of the auxiliaries from Chicago with them. His name is Auxiliary Bishop Perry. And he's charged with rescuing a lot of religious articles and artifacts from the 6 churches that were closed, the inner city churches that were closed in Chicago. Very beautiful art was rescued and is now being reused in other parishes, all thanks to him. Also, the superior of the Canons Regular, Father Frank Phillips, was on. Now, this summer marks the 2nd anniversary of the Motu Proprio, more generously allowing the traditional Latin Mass. I would say it's not any exaggeration to say that we have 2 to 3 times the number of Masses now than we had before the Motu Proprio. A great blessing indeed. But what I was shocked about was Father Frank Phillips saying that the Canons Regular have trained over 325 priests already to say the traditional Mass. That's an incredible number when you think about it. And this doesn't count the few priests I'm training, the many priests that the Fraternity of St. Peter's training, and really it's popping up all over the place. I was discussing on the phone the other day that some of the people who went to the seminary with me are now saying the traditional Mass. I would have never guessed would say the traditional Mass. And if you ask even Father McHugh himself, he would never have imagined that he would have allowed the traditional Mass to come to St. Pius. So that the Spirit is moving. The Spirit is allowing us to rediscover what made our church spread so rapidly and so completely throughout the world. The same cannot really be said for the new Mass. It's really not proven itself. And in many ways, it has done the opposite. It's pushed us in the other direction as far as a spiritual assessment of what has happened. Secondly, we should not kill the vocation. I think since the 60s, the mid-60s, we had our height in 1965, and every year we've had fewer and fewer vocations. Also, our vocations to marriage are falling. We're not having as many, as a percentage of the Catholics in the diocese around the United States, we're not having as many marriages in the church. So we have killed our vocations. Again, I attribute that not only to the society, but to the way in which people are minimalists in their prayer life. The way in which many times modern pastors have not encouraged that spiritual hardiness, that spiritual valor, which is so necessary for any growth in any church. And we, of course, had great examples of that before, and now they're less prominent. Now they're less widespread, and many of our Catholics have been pushed into hiding, so to speak. Many of our Catholics after the council no longer went to Mass. They were very disgusted with what happened. Many things were forced on them of which they did not approve, and we're still suffering from that effect. We must realize that young people need a true cause. Naturally, we need something that is that for which is worth fighting. Naturally, we know once the confirmation is bestowed upon us and our initiation is complete, that our faith is worth fighting for. And I would vigorously take to task anyone who said that we could not measure the effects of either Mass, and we could not say that the traditional Mass was not an incredible part of the flowering of the Church, really for the 200 years prior to the changes. I wanted to inject a quote, one of my favorite, from Winston Churchill. He said that if you weren't young and a liberal, you had no heart. And if you weren't old and conservative, you had no brain. Very true. Very true indeed. We must learn. We must be idealistic in our youth. But we must hone that idealism into a realism that is authentic. We must realize that over time and with experience, we don't lose that youthful exuberance, but yet we know better the score. We know better the tricks of Satan. We know better how he has fooled us and those around us through our experiences. It's very true that some people never learn. There are 50 and 60-year-olds who don't learn. They've not learned. And there are some people wise beyond their youth. We take St. Teresa of the Little Flower as one. In her teens and 20s, who was far more advanced than many people in their 70s. Extraordinary individual. Normally, it takes most of us a long time to get there. Many faults, many failures to realize what's true and what is a sham. Thirdly, do not kill piety and holiness. You have to be careful not to quench the Spirit, and that goes along with what I've been talking about for a couple of sermons with spiritual jealousy. We must always try to promote anything, especially with our relatives, that is attractive to them and makes them get closer to God and closer to their religion. We think about the lavabo, the prayers during the lavabo. Take these words to heart. If not at today's Mass, at other Masses, we really need to meditate upon this. During the lavabo prayer, it says, "Take not away my soul, O God, with the wicked, nor my life with the men of blood. Don't let someone kill me. Don't let my holiness be for naught. Keep me in that steadfast and protected area under the shadow of the Blessed Virgin Mary, under her mantle.